again, have to thank you for taking time to talk to us, and probably what's the most difficult, hands down, time of your life.
It is.
So thank you for being gracious enough to open up your time to us. How are you doing?
Well, I'm so driven, I'm so motivated to save lives that I'm working 24/7, spending over 90% of my time on this mission, and 10% trying to keep my company running. I have very good executives, and they're filling in good. But you know, on my desk, I have 2 stacks of papers. On the left are business-related papers, and on the right are drug-related papers. And when I sit at my desk and I look, and how can I work on making money when so many lives are being lost every day? And people don't realize what a huge epidemic, it's not even an epidemic, it's a pandemic that this is. Because it's being brushed under the carpet, and it's a stigma to drug use. Nobody talks about it. You don't read about it. Now it's coming out because I'm bringing it out from under the carpet. And 10 weeks ago, when my daughter, beautiful 18-year-old daughter, Victoria, overdosed on drugs, I didn't know a thing about it. I didn't know what a marijuana cigarette looked like. I didn't know anybody that was using drugs. I never had any experience with it. I never touched them myself. And in 10 weeks, I have traveled this country. I've met with everybody that'll meet with me. I met with the Surgeon General of the United States in Washington, the top doctor. I've met with the director of the DEA in Washington. I've visited rehab centers all over the country. I've sat in on counseling sessions with addicts. Basically, I've had a crash course in the drugs, in addiction in the last 10 weeks. And before I even buried my daughter, I made up my mind that her death was not going to be in vain, that her legacy was going to be that I was going to, in her name, I was going to save hundreds, thousands, millions of lives. But I didn't know what to do, because I thought everything that could possibly be done was being done. How wrong I was. Nothing was being done. I mean, drugs have been out there for years. Nothing is being done.
How do you combat that problem, though? I mean, different generations have faced their own demons. Whatever popular drug is on the streets at the time. Yeah. What's different about this generation and the problem they face with this?
Here's how I'm going to combat it. First of all, I am advocating for random drug testing in all the schools.
High schools, colleges?
Starting in middle school, high school, and college. And sitting in on all these drug counseling sessions, the one common denominator that everyone, not some of them, but every single addict that was in rehab, they all started 14, 15 years old experimenting with marijuana, and it led to harder drugs. So when they say that marijuana is not a gateway to harder drugs, they don't know what they're talking about. The people that say that have never sat in rehab sessions.
And we're in a period in our country where not only are states legalizing marijuana, but there's the push to, even in Florida, to legalize medical marijuana. I'm curious to know what your thoughts about that are.
It's the beginning. If they legalize marijuana, it's the beginning of the end.
Why?
Here's why marijuana is so addictive and such a what they call gateway drug. First of all, when a child up to the age of about 24, the frontal cortex, that part of your brain right behind your forehead, has not fully developed. That's why, you know, kids do crazy things and they get in auto accidents, they don't concentrate, and they try drugs and they try alcohol, and it's because That is the part of your brain that controls your risk taking, your what's the word I want to use? Your reasoning, and add to that marijuana, which whatever reasoning and control that they had at that early stage of their development, the marijuana takes it away. So now they have no fear. And when they start on marijuana, they get a high, and then they get a low, and then they get another high. Well, the body adjusts to this, and after a while, they don't get the highs anymore, but they miss those highs. So what do? They say, I'll take other drugs, and they start taking other drugs. And every medicine cabinet in the country is loaded with drugs.
And that's different in this generation. You talk to so many people, at least anecdotally, you don't feel like when you open the medicine cabinet, our parents, their parents, that they were stocked like they are today. Doctors are quick to write prescriptions in some cases. So how do parents deal with really what is a different environment on every level and keeping their kids safe?
First of all, we have a serious prescription problem in this country. We have 5% of the world population, and we write 95% of the prescriptions in the world. And if you go to a doctor and you leave there without a prescription, either you feel like he didn't do his job, or he feels like he didn't do his job. And every time you go, or let's say you have a toothache. Here's a good example. And you go to a dentist and he gives you a prescription, a 30-day supply of a painkiller. And after 3 days, you don't have a pain in your mouth. So you take the other 27 days and you put it in the medicine cabinet. Now it's available for any kids that want to go there and start using it.
So let's talk about your idea of drug testing. You said you're interested in starting as young as middle school. How, in your mind, and you're a businessman, so you've seen projects from beginning to completion in a lot of cases. In your mind, how would this play out, and how would you get parents to sign off at a young age, and then when they're adults, the consent of the individual?
All right, well, before I answer that, I got to tell you a little more about what a problem this is. Every 4 minutes, we've been sitting here maybe 8 minutes, I don't know. Every 4 minutes, somebody is dying of a drug overdose. 350 people a day are dying of drug overdose. Now, let me equate it to something. At our airport in Orlando, a jumbo jet with 350 passengers crashes today, and it'll be on the headlines all over the world. Well, one of those jetliners with 350 passengers is crashing every single day. That's our problem. We have 25 million people that are addicted today. 25 million. There's 25 million people who are in recovery. That's 50 million people. Add the families to that, and you have 100 million people in this country. 1/3 of our population that is affected by drugs. So now, let me go back to how drug testing is going to help. First of all, the best way to stop anything is a strong deterrent. The fear of a child being caught will keep them from starting. First of all, that's in middle school. In the high school or the university, by that time they've already been using drugs for a while. So again, the borderline cases in the universities, I'm going to use that as an example because I am now talking to UCF, our local university, which is the second largest university in the country. I'm talking to them about putting in random drug testing. Now, the people who are on the borderline, that'll keep them from using drugs, the fear of getting caught. And don't forget, drug use is a lot of peer pressure. Now, kids didn't have a defense against peer pressure. Kid says, use it, be cool. They don't know what to say. They could say, I don't want to be cool, or okay, I'll try. Now with random drug testing, they have an excuse. I would love to be part of the gang, but I'm afraid I'd get caught. So now they have a legitimate excuse not to be so-called cool.
And so in your mind, would the university take the active role in this random drug testing? And,
absolutely.
And would the students know this? Again, in your mind, as this project would play out, would the students know that they were potentially going to be tested at any point?
They're
They would
gonna
have to
know.
agree to that.
That's what the whole deterrent is, that the fear of getting caught. Now, we're not going to kick kids out of school if they test positive. If they're just starting or borderline cases, occasional usage, and they're not addicted, we'll give them counseling. We'll straighten them out. We'll let them know why they shouldn't be doing drugs. But the severe cases where they really need help, we'll get them rehab. But we're not going to kick kids out, because that would only compound the problem. Now you kick a kid out of school who's using drugs, he's going to end up in the street and he's going to become a habitual addict. So it's not a question of the penalty being so severe, but they will get help. And we'll weed out the ones that need help. Now, are you going to stop it? Not in every case, but right now, 22% of the kids in college around the country, and these are all the different experts that I've talked to, that's what they've come up with, 22% are either using drugs or they're selling drugs. And what they do, in the universities, a kid will go into a doctor and he says, I'm having trouble studying, and the doctor will give him a prescription for Adderall, and he'll go fill the prescription, go back to school, and he'll sell those Adderall pills for $35 each. Now he has spending money, he can take his girlfriend or boyfriend to the movies or to dinner, whatever. And they don't realize it, but they're becoming drug dealers. And so this random drug testing, the fear of getting caught, half of that 22% will immediately stop for fear. The other, but wouldn't that be wonderful? Because at UCF alone, they have 62,000 students. 12,000 of their students are using drugs or selling drugs. And if we cut it in half, we would save 6,000 students immediately.
Would their admission, for example, be contingent on them agreeing to being randomly tested? And what role would the administration play?
Yes, I would say that do it right. As they register for school, they will say, I agree to be randomly drug tested. Now, as a parent, I have 6 children that will be going to college in the next few years. Would I want to send my children to a school that I know has 22% of the kids using drugs? 1 out of 5 are using drugs? Or do I want to send it to a school that says we're a drug-free, or we're trying to be a drug-free school?
Are you gaining traction with people?
I haven't had an objection. Every single person, including people who work at UCF, including them. I've already met with Dr. Hitt. He's concerned about, he don't know enough about it really to make a decision. But I said, Dr. Hitt, you're an educator, probably been an educator for 40 years. On one hand, you're interested in a good education. But what's more important, a good education or saving lives? And he had to admit, saving lives is more important than anything else. I said, good, let's get this going. On the 28th of August, I have a meeting with the head of the police department, the chief of police at UCF, and a lot of the high-ranking people to see what we can do about getting drug testing there.
So in your perfect world, this might even be the start of these programs nationwide.
Listen, UCF, today, Dr. Hitt, I listened to his speech, he said they're shooting for the stars. Well, they want to be #1. This could be the first school in the nation. I cannot find another school in the country, but I'm not saying there aren't any. I can't find another school in the country that's doing random drug testing. But that don't mean you can't be the first one.
Sure. Will it be enough to curb what you so appropriately call an epidemic?
Let's say it cuts it in half. Maybe there'll only be 175 people dying every day instead of 350. It will save lives, and believe me, people will feel so much better about sending their children to college See, the problem is most parents don't even have a clue. They don't have a clue what's going on there. Also, I want to combine this with a mandatory course in drug addiction that every freshman takes when they go there, to show them the downfall of using drugs is.
I'm interested in a point you just made. You said so many parents have no clue that their children are involved in this. When you look back, were there any signs that you feel you missed now that you know what you know about this problem?
In my case, I could have been a better father. I was so involved in building a large company. You know, we're the largest private company in Central Florida, 12,000 employees. We're the leader in our industry, and we just went through a terrible recession. And while my daughter was going through the vital year, did I know that 14, 15, that's when they started? I had no idea. I mean, no one told me. That's why I'm trying to get the word out. I would have had her checked once a month, every 6 months. I had no clue. She seemed perfectly normal, but I didn't maybe spend the amount of time with her that a parent should spend to see if she was acting normal or not. And when I was with her, she seemed fine. I had no clue and no suspicion. She was a typical bright teenager, very artistic, musical, and big smile. But she had anxieties. She didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. So we sent her to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist put her on Xanax. And she got hooked on Xanax, and that was the beginning of the end. I didn't know she was hooked on Xanax until she called me up one day and said, I checked myself into a rehab center because I'm hooked on Xanax. And I said, I'm proud of you that you're doing something about it. Unfortunately, she came out 10 days later, and again, with no knowledge whatsoever, I figured, oh, good. That's a quick recovery. I found out you cannot get unaddicted to a drug in 10 days. And after you go through rehab, you have to be monitored. For the first 30 days are critical. She got out, no information given to the parents. You got to watch your daughter or anything, and we thought she was cured.
And that's the position that so many parents are in these days when they come to find the
lack of knowledge. And that's why I'm trying to get out there and talk to as many people as I can and educate them. You don't read about it in the paper. You don't see it on TV. A few months ago there was a little story on heroin usage up 400%. But other than that, you never see drug stories. And yet a third of our population is affected by this, and nobody and it's brushed under the carpet. Nobody talks about it.
Are you worried that it'll only get worse in future generations with the access that kids will have to just about everything?
Not if I can do something about it, but I would say that unless, and I can't do it alone, it's going to take a village. It's going to take thousands of people doing this. That's why I want to unite these other foundations. I can't speak at every school and speak at every chamber meeting and all. It's going to take awareness. People have to know. Every parent that has a child 13, 14 or older should be looking at their children. I know they're all angels in their parents' eyes, but 1 out of 5 is using drugs.
Tell us how Victoria's Voice Foundation will be different than what's out there. You mentioned in passing that there are a number of these organizations that sort of aim to do the same thing. Will this essentially bring them all together, and how do you envision this being different?
It's going to be a voice for all these little foundations that are out there, that we speak and get this out in public where people are hearing about it. I want to save lives, and if one family that's watching this show takes a harder look at their child and realizes that they got a problem and they do something now about it, my mission won't be accomplished, but that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make my daughter's legacy be that millions of people are going to live because she died. And I don't know how many people, how many lives I have to save to justify her dying, but I'm going to do it. And this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. This is my mission. I'm motivated. I'm driven. If I was this driven in business, I'd be a zillionaire today. But this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life, as long as I have a breath left, and get it out in public. Now, that's one mission. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's going to shock you. And that is, there is a drug called naloxone. Have you ever heard of it? Mm-hmm. Okay. Drug's been out for 30 years. Nobody knows about it. It will stop an overdose in its tracks if given in time. It's like anti-venom to a snake bite. Mm-hmm. The first responders should carry it. They haven't been. The police should carry it. They haven't been. It's harmless. It's FDA approved. It's totally I could take it right now and it would be like drinking a glass of water. It would have no effect on me because I'm not on drugs. But anyone that is overdosing on drugs, if given, and it comes in a spray bottle, just like Afrin, you could spray it in each nostril, and if they're overdosing, it can be stopped in its tracks and reversed immediately. And unfortunately, I don't know if the first responders that came to my house for when my daughter overdosed, if they even had it with them. I've been trying to find out, but I can't. Hopefully they did. I'd hate to think that because of ignorance, she died. But every time a doctor, and it's a prescription drug, but every time a doctor writes a prescription, he should write a prescription for naloxone. It's also called Narcan. And like I said, it's been out 30 years. Where's it been? Nobody knows about it. I mean, and it could have saved millions of lives, and nobody knows about it. It's New York City just allocated money that 20,000 police officers are going to be carrying it. But where were they, New York, how many overdoses have they had? Where were they a year ago, 2 years ago? This Florida legislature just passed a law that first responders can use it. I mean, these things, I'm shocked that why all of a sudden I'm involved in this and I'm finding out that nothing, when I tell you nothing's been done, I'm telling you nothing's been done.
Well, I was going to say, in that vein, do you plan on petitioning state lawmakers to make this more known, perhaps get the funding to get these local departments
People are going to demand it. They're going to demand it. I want to get the drug companies to give it away free. I want you to be able to go to a supermarket and pick up some. I want every person on drugs to, you know how people that have a bad heart, they carry nitroglycerin with them. People that have diabetes, they carry a little vaporizer, whatever. I want every person using drugs to have a little spray bottle, it could be attached to their keychain, of naloxone, that in the event that they do overdose, somebody with them can just spray it and save their life. Because sometimes by the time 9/11 comes, it's too late.
Let me ask you this. You had said in the beginning of this interview there were signs that you think you missed. You could go back in time. Everyone has, in your position, has had probably that same thought or that same emotion. What do you want people to know about Victoria and the new mission that you have?
I want everybody that has children over the age of 14 to drug test them on a regular basis for their own peace of mind, that they know their kids are not doing it.
Just bring in a kit and say,
but I will tell you, in my generation, I behaved because if I didn't, my father would give me a spanking. A strong deterrent will keep people on the straight and narrow. And the same thing with children. They don't, you don't spank your children anymore, but they don't want to be yelled at. They don't want privileges taken away. They don't want their cell phone taken away or their computer.
It all starts at home.
Starts at home. It's got to start at home. And if people have young children that starting, I'd say at 14 years old. I'm sure there's some cases of 13, but 14, 15 is the age they start experimenting. Start drug testing them for their own peace of mind, knowing that their kids are clean. The fear of drug testing will keep these kids from using drugs, even starting to use drugs. And you know, we have a pipeline filled with 25 million people on drugs. We gotta stop filling that pipeline at the beginning. We gotta cut it off.
How do you envision your days being different? You mentioned the stack of business work, now the stack of personal work you have to do. From here on out, how have your days looked different besides the work that you've been doing?
I'm kind of a dictator in my company. No decision really gets made of importance without my approval. I am starting to delegate that to other people, but I need to spend 10% of my time just kind of overlooking everything, and the other 90% will be on this mission.
What do you tell your other kids?
My family has really come together over this, but they know what can happen. They have a true example of what can happen if you use drugs. But that don't mean I'm not going to drug test them. I'm going to test my kids periodically. They know it. I don't care how many times they look me in the eye and they say, "Oh, Dad, I would never do that." My grown children said, or my older children said, "Oh, I would never use drugs," but I'm not going to take their word for it. Their life is at stake, and they know that I'm going to drug test them on a regular basis. And I hope every test, I'm not looking for them to be on drugs, I hope every test comes back clean. But,
How old are your other children?
well, I have a 16, a 15, a 14, a 12, and 8-year-old twins. Those are my young ones. I've raised 14, and
Sure.
The others are all grown up, and I you know, they're smart enough to know that you don't use drugs. I hope they are anyway.
Sure. Have you been back to Versailles yet?
I've been back once in the last 10 weeks. Versailles, which is the home, for people that don't know, is the home I'm building. It's going to be finished in 2 years, with or without me. It is not my focal. I'm so focused on saving lives. You know, it's almost hard to go to bed because I say, you know, if I work another hour on this, maybe I'll save one more life. And I want to save them one at a time. You know, there's a story that I heard many years ago, and it relates so well to this. A storm on the beach blew in millions of seahorses onto the beach, and a little boy was down there, and he picked up one and he threw it back in the water. And an old man said, "Little boy," he says, "you can't possibly make a difference." And the boy picked up a little seahorse and he threw it back, and he said, "I made a difference to that one, didn't I?" And so I don't know how, you know, I'll never know the lives that I'm going to save unless, you know, suddenly a report comes out that the number of people dying every day is now only 100 instead of 350, that maybe someone dies every 20 minutes instead of every 4 minutes. I mean, yeah, then I'll know that my work has been rewarding. But I know I've talked to groups at meetings, at banquets, and so many parents have come up to me and said, you know, my kids, we had a drug problem with them. I know cousins, brothers. I mean, the mayor said her brother died of an overdose. The sheriff lost one of his relatives. You know, no one's immune. Right. You may not have a problem in your family, but you know somebody that's going. We've got to stop this. It's killing. It's killing our future. It's killing the future Steve Jobs. It's killing the future Bill Gates. It's killing the cure for cancer is being lost. This is our brightest generation coming up. There are movies you won't see. There's books you won't read. There's music you won't hear. I mean, this is not people laying in the gutter that are using illegal drugs. These are people from every walk of life. They're people from my family, from your family.
Did you ever envision that this would be your next big calling?
I had no idea. I thought I was going to live out the rest of my life just, running a company, expanding, hiring more people, living the good life, finishing my home and taking it a little easier. But how can I do that now when there's so many lives at stake? I mean, I feel like some higher power, I'm not a religious person, but I feel like some higher power has given me the flag to carry in this fight. And I'm going to do it. And I'll do it to my last breath.
How's Jackie doing?
Jackie, no, because she knows what I'm trying to do, she's coping. She didn't crawl into bed and become a basket case because she feels like something good is going to come out of this tragedy. And we're going to make sure, as a result, that your children, who are now young, are going to live a nice, happy, normal life. And a lot of people, millions of people like you. And I didn't ask to be here, but someday, and I don't know when it's going to be, I'm going to look back and say it's a good thing that my daughter Victoria died, because look at all these millions of people that are going to live. Yeah.
All these pictures on your wall, all the money you've made, all the fame you've gotten, will that compare to what you hope to achieve here?
None of it. It pales to what I'm going to achieve. I mean, you can't compare money or fame or glory or to saving lives. I'm in a, I don't want to say, I'm in like a God-like position here where I have control over so many millions of lives that are going to be saved because of my efforts. That's why, when I start getting tired, it gives me the energy. Say, if I work another hour, I can maybe save another life. If I go to give an interview, if I go speak to a group of people, when I'm tired, maybe my efforts will save some lives.
One final question, just to bring this full circle. A lot of people's first introduction to Victoria was the tragedy that happened with her. I want you to tell us something special about her. Tell us the type of girl she was, type of woman she was going to become that we didn't read about in the papers.
Well, as I said, she was a beautiful girl. I mean, she was almost 6 foot tall. In fact, the last time I saw her, we were standing at the entrance to my kitchen, and I was standing, and she said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you" back. And I said, "Wow, you're getting taller than me." And I'm 6 foot tall, and she was probably 5'11" to 6 foot tall. She would come up to me whenever I'd be sitting in my office. She'd come up behind me, and she'd hug me and say, "I love you," and I'd say, "I love you" back. But I was so preoccupied with business. I'd be sitting there reading business magazines or articles or reports, and sometimes, and I regret, I didn't even turn around and look her in the eye. I just said, "I love you," and then she would leave. But she really did want to do a lot of things. She wanted to open up. We own the Cocoa Beach Pier, and one of her dreams was to open up she used the name Ricky. I never used Ricky. I always called her Victoria. That kind of bugged her because she wanted everybody to call her Ricky. But and I didn't even know this until after she died, but she wanted to open up a Ricky Tiki Tavern at the pier and have a bar with fish swimming in it and all. And she even drew the plans for it and all. I didn't even realize that until after she died. So we now have, at the pier, we have a Ricky Tiki Tavern. And we also, I'm getting a little teary-eyed here, we also, in Las Vegas we bought the former Las Vegas Hilton. It's now the Westgate Las Vegas. And we have and she also wanted to have a sushi bar. And so we have a Ricky Tiki sushi bar there as well. So we're trying to finish up her dreams, but she was a wonderful artist. She wanted to design clothes. You know, there's so many, you know, I can play the second guessing game. It'll drive me crazy, but there's so many things that I could have done differently that maybe she'd be alive today, but you know, I can't play it. It is what it is, and we're going to use her death to save lives. That's my mission. I guess maybe that was my purpose in life. I don't know, but
We appreciate you taking time to talk to us, and we'll do everything that we can to spread the word about the organization.
We're going to have this march in Washington on October 4th.
Okay, and that will be the tie-in with Victoria's Voice.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're going to get the word out and make sure everybody in the country knows what a crisis this is. So.
Thank you for talking with us. Thank you for opening up your heart to us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.